Hi, I'm Shannon, and welcome to my case study presentation for the Google Certificate in Data Analytics Capstone project. I've chosen to do some data analysis for Bellabeat, a worldwide company specializing in fitness devices for women. The task in this case study is what you see here. One thing that stood out to me about the assignment is the international availability of it. The Google Certificate program is worldwide, as is the case study company Bellabeat. In terms of data to use to achieve the first task of identifying trends, the case study pointed to one particular dataset and recommended that I find additional datasets to use. The recommended dataset is made up solely of a small sample of Fitbit data that's been thoroughly anonymized to the point that I can't even tell what hemisphere it came from. For the second and third tasks, I felt it would be most useful to focus on the market that's local to me, which is the US market. With that in mind, and because it's a case study, I decided to proceed as if the Fitbit data is from the US, and look for supporting datasets that would help me with the second and third tasks, since health data is tightly controlled in the US by things like HIPAA, data privacy policies, and steep paywalls. Here's a little more information about the dataset recommended by the case study. It was collected in 2016 for 1 month from about 30 Fitbit users who gave explicit consent to share their device data. As I mentioned a moment ago, it has been thoroughly anonymized with no information about age, gender, ethnicity, community type, or anything like that. I would have liked to be able to analyze specifically the women in the dataset, given Bellabeat's target market, but we work with what we've got. For additional data, I scoured the internet for more raw data that would help me, but most of the sets I found were either already summarized or behind processes or paywalls to access it. So, as I mentioned a moment ago, I opted to compile and compare some summary statistics from sources that appear reputable. Dataset B offered the least information about their data collection and processing, but had a larger sample size of 962 participants and offered a few statistics that I could compile to analyze. Dataset C is less of a dataset and more of a report, but it offered more information about the reliability and had a much more comfortable sample size of over 4,000 respondents and offered very relevant information to apply to Bellabeat's market strategy. Here you can see some of the steps I took for setting up a storage system for this data. And I will say this case study was definitely a useful exercise for me in putting together all the analytical skills I learned in the course, and I had a little trial and error while deciding which data files to select from the collection. One note I'll make here is that I initially hypothesized that there would be some kind of connection between sleep patterns and how much people exercised, but the data just really wasn't there to support that, especially in the daily files where I spent the first chunk of time on this project. From there, I paused to look for more data sets, and that search actually led me in a little different direction for this very broad assignment, since this particular topic was tricky to find good raw data for. As far as data tools, I mostly used Excel simply because I've used it for years, so it was the most efficient for me. But I used SQL a little bit for combining tables and rearranging some of the data, and I'm excited to keep building my skills with SQL and R in the very near future. So here's what I did find with dataset A. When I shifted to look at hourly data instead of daily, I found that the entries were actually in much better shape. Through exploring the dataset looking specifically for insights that could inform marketing strategy, I found that the most steps got logged on Tuesdays by sum total, but the average highest intensities were on Saturdays. One possible hypothesis could be that people take walks more on Tuesdays and do more cardio on Saturdays. Another possible explanation could be that our sample is made up of people who are on their feet a lot for work, like teachers, nurses, store clerks, etc. It's hard to say without more robust information. I didn't spend too much time on the Fitbit data because I personally found the other datasets more interesting and more reliable. So, moving on to dataset B, what I found was that younger people are more likely to have tried sleep tracking apps than their older counterparts. Next, if you'll pay attention to the largest portions of each pie chart, the green and brown portions, these are the people who have never tried sleep tracking apps. Every brown section is bigger than every green section, which means that more than half of people who have never tried it can imagine trying it. That's a lot of potential first-time users. For tracking nutrition, the charts were similar, but I wanted to focus on just one particular functionality here, so I picked sleep. Speaking of which, here you can see a comparison of nutrition tracking versus sleep tracking. The groups are still divided by age, But here, the light green sections represent a combination of the people who have tried these app functions at least once. If you have a look at the sizes of each section on the left chart with the sizes of each section on the right chart, you'll notice that almost double the number of people have tried nutrition tracking apps than sleep tracking apps. But there's still a fair number of people who are open to trying either one. Now, shifting to compare the functions by community instead of age, we see that urban communities are the most saturated with people who have tried either type of tracking app, and rural areas are the least experienced. So, depending where Bellabeat's current focus is, the company could focus on upselling or upgrading products in urban areas or first-time users in suburban and rural areas. Now we move on to dataset C, which I really wanted to touch on because the results they already published apply so closely to this case study. The title of the article tells us that 1 in 5 Americans currently wear smartwatches. More women than men wear them, so Bellabeat's choice to cater to the feminine market makes a lot of sense. The most notable information I got from this chart was the significant stratification in use between income levels, and to some degree, education levels as well. This information emphasizes to me that even though these are something of a luxury item, they still appeal to people across a lot of different situations. Here, I've highlighted the top users in each demographic category. So, the same study asked about people's opinions on data sharing, which is connected to the difficulty of finding raw data to use for this data analysis case study. It's people's personal data, and a lot of it could easily be considered health data. The part of this chart that catches my attention is the opinions of current users and non-users about sharing data. About half of current users view data sharing as acceptable, while people who don't currently wear these devices are a little more divided on the topic, as you see here. One other piece of information I found while looking for these types of data is actually the Smartwatch Data Act, which is currently still a bill, but it could impact Bellabeat's business strategy in the US market. Smartwatch here stands for Stop Marketing and Revealing the Wearables and Trackers Consumer Health Data Act. So to summarize, these are the most important insights I found from each dataset, some of which support each other. First, the most steps happen on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in that order, and the highest intensity is on Saturday afternoon. Sunday is the least active. Second, nutrition tracking seems more popular than sleep tracking with this kind of technology. Third, younger and urban groups have more experience using this kind of technology. Some older and rural groups are willing to try it out. And fourth, smartwatches and fitness trackers are closer to luxury items than necessities, but a wide variety of groups use them to some degree. And fifth, current opinions and official policies are cracking down on data sharing from health tracking devices. Now, let's move on to the marketing strategy recommendations for each of those 5 insights. For Insight 1, different activity days, Bellabeat should congratulate or reward users who log a certain number of steps each day, and they could possibly push daily reminders to users to keep active on Thursday through Monday. For Insight 2, where people track nutrition more than sleep, I suggest that the company capitalize on interest in diet and nutrition tracking by focusing ads there. They could also be one of the first companies to spread education about the value of high-quality sleep and promote products to support sleep tracking. For Insight 3, with the differences in user demographics, they should target websites and ads frequented by younger users, as well as urban and suburban users, with product upgrade options or brand-specific strengths. By the same logic, websites and other media often used by older and rural populations would be better suited to ads for first-time users. And with that focus on first-time users, we also need to make sure that the user interface is easy and intuitive at those lower usage levels. For Insight 4, where we saw such a variety of users, the company may want to think about expanding their product lines to offer something for men as well, and offer multiple price points. They should also ensure diverse representation in all advertisements. For Insight 5, regarding the use of tracker data, the company needs to take a clear stance on Bellabeat's data sharing philosophy. They can do this by creating a simple and transparent way for users to opt out of data sharing entirely, And a possible additional step might be to frame optional data sharing as a feature so that users may want to opt in and contribute to health research. And there we have it. Here I've got a list of some residual questions I'd enjoy exploring, specifically if I had the option to do a follow-up survey on the Statista dataset for this case study. As for the Fitbit dataset, I would love to see just a much more robust set of data with a much larger sample size across more than a month, and the ability to specifically analyze data from Bellabeat's market, which is mostly women. I may go back now that I'm more familiar with the dataset and dive deeper into those more detailed files, but I wanted to get this presentation published before too much more time passed. For dataset C from the Pew Research Center, I'd just like to get access to that raw data and explore it if that was possible. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear your feedback and answer any questions you may have about my processes, tools, logic, conclusions, or presentations. Talk to you soon.